is looking at this series layout, and bear with me as I look across at my notes at the same time. But Oddball, Li-Fi, they didn't play each other last week. StelluR, Aquarius, Cloud9 150 to 47 last week on that one. KotH Streets did not feature. CTF Bazaar was not played, and then StelluR Streets was Cloud9 150 to 40. So both of the Slayers were won by Cloud9. I think that is a big indicator because they weren't particularly close, especially on Streets. It was 50 to 40 in favor of Cloud9. So when you look at the two Slayers perhaps going in favor of Cloud9 here, just purely based off last week, suddenly you need to be looking at where these objective games are going to go. Can Optic take down them on Oddball Li-Fi, for example? Traditionally, you'd say yes. You'd say Optic are good at live fire, so maybe that will put them in good stead. This could be a very interesting best of 5 with how this layout's gone.
Am I mistaken thinking these two teams... Cloud9 definitely played the King of the Hill Streets last week, and they looked a little bit disjointed on it. Was that against Optic, or was it against someone else?
If I scroll down, they lost 4-0 on King of the Hill Streets.
There you go.
Yeah,
okay,
you
so
are
I'm
right.
not losing my mind. Okay, my brain still... in some capacity is working, which is good. So this is looking like a pretty good series layout, you would say, objectively.
Yep.
Maybe for Optic, especially with this first game. Like we say, this has been a map which they hadn't lost too many times, but you brought up a really good point last week, which was saying previous to Formal joining, this was a map they won every single time, right? But when Formal joined, for whatever reason, if it's other teams getting better or maybe just Optic not having the same kind of chemistry as previously, Li-Fi isn't quite the fortress it used to be.
No, it's definitely not the unbeatable place that they found themselves in prior, as the 3 of them fall at the start of this game. TriPPPeY being the last remaining player, but does at least take a couple players down. That's just something that can happen sometimes, regardless of whether it's StelluR, regardless of whether it's Formal. It just happens in these situations where other teams start to learn what you do. They start to study the best team on a map, and that's what Optic were. They were the Li-Fi team, and everyone else started to catch up.
You can see early on here, it's going to be just a couple of seconds to Optic, but they've lost 3 players, and also off of the rip, they've lost the overshield. So this is going to be Pznguin ball in hand, and I kind of like this. It's a kind of transitional setup here for Cloud9. And I like that Penguins decided, hey, I'm going to hold the oddball because when the push comes in, I'm still going to be able to drop and do a lot of damage here for my squad.
A lot of damage to be done, but also a chance to maybe set up for Pznguin here if he can stay alive. Notice how he's using the scoreboard just to try and block that view of APG. Waits for his teammate. Very well played there from Pznguin. You've always got to be worried about the vulnerability that you have to grenades when you're kind of standing in those positions, excuse me, but as long as you trust in your teammates that they will be there quick enough to help you, you can do a lot of ball time there.
I mean, that was phenomenal, to be honest with you, from Cloud9. Just knowing they had numbers, there was no sort of thought of, I go here, you go there. We just all stand together and we all fight those last players alive. And they managed to get that lead. Lucid trying to push in on the flank with a sniper rifle, doesn't connect to the shots. And that is going to allow TriPPPeY maybe on the flank to clean up some of the damage, but he's going to have to deal with Pznguin bottom middle. Does so. There's another player just going to be scuppering behind him, I think. Got to deal with Eco as well. And at the moment, TriPPPeY kind of doing it all here for Optic as he takes down 3 members of C9.
And sometimes you need that. You need someone who is going to be stepping up and hitting those doubles, hitting those triples to give you that little bit of a momentum swing going into things, as Overshield is going to be popping very shortly as well. So we're going to see a big old fight here on the dummies, and Lucid's done very well from bottom middle.
Yeah, somehow managed to get the stick there. The overshield is still down. I think StelluR got the kill onto APG and now pushing forward. He's going to be able to pop that one, and the Cloud9 swarm comes in. Now StelluR is the furthest forward in his team, has to hold off the wave of Optic Gaming. The overshield's going to do that extremely well. Takes down Formal. Lucid taking damage, and that's going to be more points on the board here for C9.
And C9 doing so well to rotate this ball. Pznguin retreating over to green, but I think he will run straight into TriPPPeY, but still manages to get the kill.
Through him.
Still manages to get that ball over towards green. And if you are the player who is going to be going face-to-face with the ball, you at least need to get a trade there.
Shots from Lucid here are looking a little bit shaky early on. A couple of snipes maybe in some of those bigger games we see him hit. Lucid missing a couple of shots with that heat wave as well, but cleaning up some of the damage at back green is certainly going to maybe just restore that confidence for a few seconds. Another player going to be down on the pillars. However, there's another player sneaking around here at B, so he's got to try and defend this oddball with his life. But look at the swarms now coming in for Cloud9 down. All of them around the garage. It's going to be a tough hold here for Lucid, but the heat wave's certainly going to make that a little bit more comfortable.
The ball does reset, though, so that's good news for Cloud9, who are desperately trying to make sure that Optic weren't in a place to pick it up, and it means that Optic can't set up with that ball as well. been very scrappy down at bottom middle. Both teams quite evenly matched when it comes to how these slays have been going down. And I really feel like one good setup could be the difference maker here for either side. But I'm leaning towards Cloud9 having the more likelihood of it actually happening.
Oh, what a play that is from StelluR as well. Just skipping over that grenade, managing to get that ball out towards tower. Teammates are there. StelluR pops back out. It's actually going to be Bound, excuse me, who exchanged the ball with StelluR as he got his shields back. And now C9 again, just making sure they have the numbers in the right place, close enough to each other. They can hold hands and exchange damage, keep each other alive. And more importantly, look at the lead now down. Overshield popping, but 56-16. This has been all C9 so far.
Gotta hit the shots, but that's good pressure from Optic Gaming. If you know there's a sniper watching that overshield, someone has to put their body on the line and get up close and personal. And allow means that APG and the rest of Optic can do some damage with this overshield, but at the same time, Cloud9 have positioned themselves so well. They've been playing the ball and rotating the ball so well that they find themselves so far ahead, as you mentioned. So Optic, they need that solid setup. They need to be getting this ball in a place where they can properly defend it.
Eco should be taken down here by APG as well, who started just to pick things up for a few seconds. He was at a bit of a slow start. 4 kills for him now. Those 2 just being added to the collection. Formal also a little bit of a slow start for him. So Optic, even though maybe the slays haven't been there, the first hold that they've had in the game is looking like a pretty strong one right now.
Good positioning now from Optic. This is going to be difficult for Cloud9 to break, but one thing we know is Cloud9 is very good at doing so, and as I say that, 3-4 on the side of Optic. So Cloud9, they were able to get that initial kills, they were able to force the play ball, and even though Optic got their best setup that they had so far, they only got, what, maybe 15, 20 points off of it, but at least they're within touching distance here.
Pznguin trying to push onto TriPPPeY, great shots as well. If he misses one of those bursts with the heat wave, then that's probably going to be him taken down, and that weapon going to be exchanged. 2 players from Optic bottom middle. Pznguin just peppering them. Wondering if the accompanying seasonings can be coming in from a teammate to finish off those kills. And it looks like StelluR is going to be that player on the flank. Brings that ball towards Eco, but look at this now. Eco being taken down, the damage being done means that StelluR changes his mind, runs this one back towards where he feels the respawners might be coming in. But the problem is APG's there, and APG will take him down, and Optic might be able to steal a setup here.
The pace of play there, unfortunately, was just a little bit too quick for StelluR. He never had a chance to reload that heat wave, and he was always thinking about it. Kept running into players, even tried to use the oddball to his advantage and toss it towards a place and maybe make it a little bit of a distraction. Didn't quite work out. Next overshield up in 3 seconds though, and Optic are in a good place to potentially get this one.
I mentioned Formal was a bit slow at the start of this game. Well, he's put his foot on the gas, because now, as we see the P picture-in-picture, well, that overshield is going to be TriPPPeY who gets it. Optic Formal is now 10 and 12. He's creeping up on that 0 KD, and if he can keep this momentum up, you would expect him to be going into the positive. That seems to be where the game has changed here for Optic. They are into a lead now, 78 points and rising. 2 players still on C plat, and look at this damage being done by TriPPPeY. Formal is going to pick up another as well, and those last 2 players that are damaged by TriPPPeY have no chance of moving on the map.
And that's 3 dead, and that is the ball still in the hands of Optic, and it could be the round here if Cloud9 don't have a spawn that allows them to have a chance to fight. It's all down to Eco, has to hit these shots, but I think the ball's escaped, and that is going to be round 1. No, not quite!
Eco just kind of like dumped on everyone. There's no other way to put it. Like, Eco just went in with a sniper rifle and did miss. And now you can see Cloud9 have the ball back in their hands. And what a heartbreaker this could be for Optic. It's 99 points on the board for them. They only needed 1 point. That was the most perfectly timed sniper shot that you could have hoped for, as Bound now has the snipe. Picks up one. TriPPPeY weak as well. Lucid challenging on the plat. And Bound taking down everyone at the moment. Last player alive, APG, top middle.
Not only did they need 1 second, but I would say they are very close in that second. Maybe a millisecond. StelluR's the last remaining player though. Pznguin trying to do what he can to fight him, and again this is going to be a situation where you have to win your 1v1 here.
Look at this rotation coming in from StelluR though. He's somehow managed to scarper away. TriPPPeY and Lucid do get the kills though that might be required for this game to end, or should I say this round to end, excuse me. Optic make the break. Optic will take home that first round, and Optic will be up by 1 as we head into round number 2.
And we saw the series layout at the start. This is such an important map for Optic Gaming to go up to get their first objective. When they lost the 2 Slayers against Cloud9 last week, they need to be putting themselves in a position where those Slayers don't necessarily come into the equation. Just win all 3 of the objectives, and you are going to be in a good enough position into that grand finals, that's for sure. Overshield, of course, going to be spawning that little bit later, so both teams are going to be fighting for it and getting into a position early on.
Overshield up in 10 seconds as well. With C9, who won the battle for that the first time around. Last time we were in the action in that round number 1. Bound now just chasing down kills, chasing shadows at the moment. Lucid trying to escape, but nope, you can't escape Bound. He is going to chase you down. He is going to make you pay. And that is going to be the sniper rifle down as well. Spots out APG. APG has absolutely no idea where Bound is until it's too late as APG falls and Bound finds himself a snipe.
We've seen what some members of Cloud9 can do with a sniper rifle. Well, it's time for the newest player on the scene in the squad. Whether he be a sub or not, whether it be permanent or not, it doesn't really matter. Right now, you've just got to be hitting your shots. And certainly Cloud9, I think, will be a little bit disappointed. They allowed that round to slip out of their fingers because they had control for the majority of the opener. But Optic did very well to break back in and, of course, have that solid 30-40 point hold.
Notice that Bound kind of plays as if he has full shields at all times, and I love that about him. Doesn't matter if he's half shields, one shot, he's still going to move into a position and react to where players are on the map and expect teammates to do enough damage for him to clean up kills or stay alive, whatever it might be. And that just consistent stifling pressure is something that we talked about a lot with Renegade, right? It's what Renegade used to do. You just consistently pressuring players on the opposition team. But off the break here, it's going to be Optic with the early lead, 26-3 in their hands. Yeah,
it's not just a case of, you know, challenging everything and being that player who is trying to catch them off guard. No, it's actually putting yourself in a position where you can add to the damage that your team is outputting and you are prepared to die for it as well. You're not just going to cower in a corner. You're not just going to try and get your shields back. Instead, you recognize that your gun is very powerful regardless of how much shields you have. And maybe that's why he's fitting so well on this Cloud9 roster, because I'd say the entire team does play like that. They don't they're not scared to put their bodies on the line, right? They're all very selfless when it comes to their way of playing Halo Infinite.
Yeah, Eco showing exactly that. Thought he could jump up and just maybe pinch that overshield away. The pressure's now going to come in as TriPPPeY has the overshield to play with. He hasn't popped it quite yet. Are you going to do that now as the ball is going to be reset as the play ball comes in from Cloud9, walking this one out towards the scoreboard. Now it's going to be the key door as we now know this area is called Keyboard, thanks to our random matchmaking teammate that Andy highlighted once or twice already today. But TriPPPeY with that ball in his hand again as Optic crossed that 50-point margin.
So it's funny, my teammates just tell me he's right there, he's over here, he's on me. I very rarely get, you know, very specific call-outs from the random, so I think you guys were lucky to find a diamond in the rough, that's for sure, in matchmaking. Nice play from TriPPPeY as he holds the ball right now, still finding damage as well, recognizing when he needs to drop it and when he needs to shoot.
Yeah, second most objective time, most kills, and looking very, very good right now. APG and Formal certainly starting to influence the game as well. Look at the assists for APG and Formal as well. 16 and 13 respectively. So both of them doing a huge amount of damage for both Lucid and TriPPPeY to capitalize on.
And now this is what we expect from Optic. They should be the more well-polished teams when it comes to like more structured game modes like this, where they've played it in and out, where they know their strategy, they know how to break setups, they know how to kind of take setups off of other teams as well. Cloud9 have one last push to try and get back into this game, otherwise they're going to be down the map.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to get past APG as well because he ain't missing too many shots at the moment. Backs down, Pznguin gets a little bit of a haircut. The second time is going to be more of a wing clipping for him as he gets taken down into the death screen, and with that, APG will take a dive into the depths because his job is done as Optic go up 1-0 in the series. 1-0
in the series, and we saw it happen before though. When they played last week, they won that Streets King of the Hill and they looked amazing. They won 4-0. There was so much structure. It was like Cloud9 were a little bit lost. But then suddenly we went over to game modes that allowed for a little bit more free-flowing nature of Halo Infinite, and Cloud9, they started to remember how to play the game again, and they really did pummel Optic into the ground last week. So Optic just need to make sure they don't allow that to happen again.
Here's the stats from the game. You can see it was, I think, the assist column that really jumps out to me. I mentioned APG and Formal. Maybe the KD wasn't quite there, but if you're going around even like they both were, pretty much, you know, 15, 21, slightly neg for APG, slightly neg for Formal, but if you're outputting that much damage with the assists, that shows that TriPPPeY and Lucid are taking advantage of it. That just shows perfect teamwork coming in from the Optic lineup.
Something that you said earlier about Optic just needing to get that victory, right? Needing to get over that line, to believe in themselves that they can win not just tournaments, but I think a bigger factor is against a bogey team that is Cloud9. They've never beaten Cloud9 in any major or in any Pro Series tournament. I think they're 0-7 is the stat right now across Pro Series and major HCS LAN events, and that is not a good place to be against a team that is meant to be your closest competitor, your biggest rival. So even though Pro Series, some might not look at it as prestigious as a LAN event, this could be a really important chance for Optic to start to turn the tide a little bit, start to believe in themselves if they were to finally get a victory. But it's very much early doors here in this series.
some of the highlights from that game as well. Bound being as aggressive as ever, picking up the most kills for his squad, but no one really popping off on Cloud9. A couple of good moments for them in that first round, but the second round was just dominant from Optic. And APG, I think it was Wes that said, you know, he's one of the most underrated snipers in Halo history. He's got one of those flicky shots that when it's on, you just see him hit some crazy headshots and bodies, and you saw an example of it there in the end of that game just to close things out for Optic. But now we move to a game type down where Cloud9 did get the better of Optic in last week's Pro Series. The question is, can Optic right that wrong and go up 2-0 in the series and find themselves just one map away from that grand final? Yeah, and it was close enough in Aquarius Slayer last week. Cloud9 won it 50-47. I think one of the biggest highlights that we saw last week was that Lucid went 11-16 in that game, and perhaps that was one of the main reasons why Optic weren't able to find success, because Lucid is often the player who, you know, steps up. He's able to do a lot of damage. He's able to get big kills. He doesn't usually die that often, so maybe he just got caught out of place quite a lot in that Slayer Aquarius last week. So they'll need to find a little bit more form here. You did touch upon the fact that they had recently come back off holidays, and maybe that could be down to a few excuses that come in for Optic last week, but I don't think they can afford to have any of those excuses today, because they've been practicing. We've seen them streaming, we've seen them scrimming, and they would love to go 2-0 up against Cloud9 here. Let's see if they can do it then. A Slayer Aquarius, certainly a map where an early lead can be a real difference maker. If you can get that first camo, then it really can escalate, and you can find yourself up by 7 or 8. And then if you're on the back foot, not where you want to be, especially if you're on the back foot already in the series with that first map loss. So you have to say maybe more weighing on Cloud9 in this series than Optic Gaming, having that map advantage, but Cloud9 will want to answer back here. Optic on the other side will want to put themselves on that series point. Optic will just want to push themselves into that grand final, have that little bit of a cushion of being an extra series up, essentially, but there is still a long road to go yet. But it all starts here on Aquarius Slayer. I'm looking at Lucid as being the key factor here. He's such a sandbox player. He'll always be making sure he's got a weapon that can give him a little bit of an advantage. And we'll see whether he can actually have a better time than he did last week. Yeah, Lucid loves that commando rifle. He's done some pretty nutty things with it recently. I saw a clip that he put up of an OS guy getting absolutely shredded by it the other day. The poor guy probably hit the Alt F4 pretty quickly after it happened because Lucid was dominating. But TriPPPeY is going to be the player to watch as well. He was having an extremely strong game in that first game of Oddball. Let's see if he can do it here in the Slayer, but he's going to get chased down as he's the first kill here for Optic Gaming. That's great from Cloud. You have to make sure that you take down the camo. You cannot allow them to escape. You've got to keep tabs on them. You expect call-outs to be screamed down the microphones to ensure that he falls. Otherwise, you can see a camouflage player really make a difference in a game that is going to be, you'd imagine, very close between these two teams. Well, it's going to be 3 dead here for Optic, and Cloud9 already on the hunt for more kills, almost doubling up on their opposition score. I mentioned how the opening can be a little bit difficult to get back into your hands if you do fall behind, and now you're going to see how difficult it can be. TriPPPeY does get the better of him there, and somehow it was APG, I think, who got the first pick in that team fight, and 3 players have now fallen for Cloud9. That was the last. All of them now respawning. His Dynamos, I think Lucid would love for them to just spawn there, as he would have been able to do so much damage, but now we're tied up at 10-10. A great hold and a defensive play from Optic. Yeah, if TriPPPeY wasn't there and hadn't have caught out Bound, it could have been very different indeed, as Lucid shows his movement and his reaction skills there, but Bound comes in with a triple kill to make sure that any hopes of Optic taking the lead once more would be quickly swatted away. This man loves a multi-kill. He absolutely thrives on them. He's hungry for them, and he's going to take down another player weak in the lobby as well. So Bound starting to warm up just a touch here. He's 6 kills to his name, only the 3 deaths, and there's Eco with a little bit of help for him as Cloud9 go back into a lead, up by 3 now. He can get this camouflage as well. That would be a great position to be in, but recognize this. Look, he knows there's a player who's going to be watching him, so he takes the fight. Okay, it doesn't work out on this occasion, but I like that play. Sometimes players will just attempt to get the camo and disappear, but you very much would be targeted by those guys that were sitting top P. Lucid has actually managed to get that camo now. Pznguin should, be taken down. Probably should have been taken down, but 2 big chunks coming in from that heat wave. It was almost like the Gnasher in Gears of War, that one, but Lucid going to be picking up the heat wave off of the body, and now with heat wave and camo, he's going to be so dangerous on the map, and Cloud9 are going to be careful here. We're tied up at 20. Oh, Eco gets the kill. That is massive for C9, just to take Lucid down with that power up and that power weapon in his hands. Still a very close game. Neither team really been able to
spread their wings and get ahead and start to maybe spawn kill and start to collapse on bases. That very much will happen if either team gets the opportunity to do so, but I will say that defensively, both teams have done really well off their spawn to set up in a way to not allow that collapse to happen, and that's why we're seeing such a close game, 24-23.
Pznguin nopes out there. He drops down, takes some damage. And the Homer sends some gif for his life again as he walks in and walks straight back out. But Lucid's going to be trying to clean up that damage. Eco going to be the first one involved. StelluR should be taken down as well. A great flank coming in from Lucid here. And you mentioned how he had a slow game on this game type last time the two teams met up. No signs of that here. He's 8-5.
And yes, okay, he's slow in one term, but maybe too fast in the other way of looking at it. Like 16 deaths is a lot on Aquarius for one player, especially a player at Lucid's level. So I think that maybe he was probably trying to play it a little bit too quick, maybe trying to react to how quick Cloud9 were playing. But I will say that this game has had more structure in a StelluR Aquarius than I've seen in quite some time. Both teams are really recognizing how they want to play it. They are both staying on their side of the maps for most things and then trying a flank here or there, but if it doesn't work, they back off. Camo goes down again. We've not seen Camo had a big influence. It's difficult to call which way this one's going to go.
Big burn, though, coming in from Eco. And now Bound on the flank. He's going to find one. Former's going to be challenging. He manages to pick up two. However, if you look at the feed, it's just 2 for 2. So Optic keeps that 2-kill advantage. And all of a sudden, Dan, now that we're past that 30 kills, that 34-kill mark for Optic, Cloud9 realizing they have to be a little bit more careful with these deaths. They can't afford to just leak them, but Bound is going to give one away here to TriPPPeY.
Yeah, Bound maybe trying to make a play, trying to get into a position to give some information and do some damage, but leaves the rest of the team in a 4 versus 3. But it doesn't look like Optic are looking to press up on this. Instead, they were more than happy just to allow those spawns to happen, wait for Cloud9 to make the move. Cloud9 did make the move, and Optic now find themselves for the first time about 4 kills ahead, which is the biggest lead we've seen them have, Optic, for quite some time.
Want to push this in. Oh my word, I was going to say what a push this is. Push coming in, but it gets shut down as TriPPPeY comes on the flank, picks up the 2 players who did try and escape from that closet. And now it's 40-35. 5 kills the difference between the two teams. This one is not over, though. It's 4v4 on the map. Make that 4v3 as Optic, unfortunately, lose Lucid for just a few moments. Pznguin going to be caught out here. TriPPPeY trying to clean it up, but Pznguin doesn't get away as Lucid is there once more. Optic making sure they clean up the damage that's being done as Bound will fall to TriPPPeY as well.
TriPPPeY is playing absolutely incredible right now and is a huge difference maker for this squad. The way he's flowing around the map, the shots that he's hitting, he is not missing. And that makes it very difficult for Cloud9 to try and break setups because he's winning all of his engagements, whether it be 1v1, even in 1v2s, he's been winning.
Cloud9 are all weak. APG manages to get 1 trade. It's 5 kills to go for Optic. 11 needed, however, for Cloud9. Bound is going to be weak. He's going to be 1 shot, and he's going to fall to Formal. And the heat wave now just 3 kills to go here for Optic to close out this game and go 2-0 up in the series. It's looking like the green wall might be on the verge of making their way towards that grand final.
Maybe finally beating Cloud9 in a competitive HCS tournament as well. It's still not done yet, though, and I have seen teams come back in this situation, but Formal manages to make it 48.
APG needs to stay alive, but no, StelluR with the camo might be the difference maker here. TriPPPeY taken down as well by Bound. And oh no, Optic. Surely you can't let this happen again. These close games, these nail-biting games, just do not seem to go in their favor a lot of the time. 45-48. Now, it might just seem like Optic need a couple of trades, but the difference is here. 1 clean wipe from Cloud9, and Cloud9 could run away with this.
It was something you highlighted, that clutch factor from Optic, getting over the finish line. This is going to be a big telltale sign of whether Optic are going to finally get over that hump. It's games like this they need to win to put themselves 2-0 up in the series.
Pznguin gets one as well. Bound is going to be trying to stay alive. Eco stays alive as well. Bound gets taken down, but look at the exchanges. It's 49-48, and finally Optic get it done. But my word, did they make that tough for themselves. Optic, when all said and done and the cards fall, it's 2-0 to them in the series, and finally they show a little bit of resolve in those close games to get the win.
That's why even when it's, you know, a 6-kill lead and only a few kills needed, you have to just have that in the back of your mind of you are playing against Cloud9. They do have the potential to get back into a game. Optic just about managed to get over the finish line. They scraped it indeed, but they will take some scrapes They will take some batters, some bruises along the way as long as they can finally get that victory. They go 2-0 up in this series. That's something they weren't able to do last week. In both series last week, they went 1-0 up and then lost 3-1. So finally they get that second on the board. I think that is going to be crucial for their chances of victory here.
Well, here are the stats. So you can see no player really being outstanding, I would say, outside of TriPPPeY. And even though he's only +1, the 10 assists alongside that really do kind of sum up what kind of a game he had. And every single time we were on his POV, he was dealing damage, he was getting kills, he was doing everything that was required. But I think you raised a really interesting point halfway through that game, Dan. It was like the structure to that game, the pace of that game changing at different moments. It was almost like it was scripted, right? We could kind of just feel the moments, and both teams just playing it almost to a T.
Yeah, a lot of respect as well, I think, for each player on that team. You wouldn't just push out unnecessarily expecting to win a 1v1 against anyone. You didn't want to take 1v1s in this environment. You've got 8 players who, for the most part, are not going to miss when their shot is on, and you can hope that maybe their shot isn't going to be on, but you'd expect them to be with the sheer caliber of player that we're seeing in these tournaments now. But 2-0 up, Optic find themselves in such a good position, Mark, as we look back at some of the replays and some of the highlights that made the difference for this squad. But going into game 3, it's the game that you highlighted, the one that I missed on my notes. It's that King of the Hill on Streets, which maybe I missed it because it went by so quickly. It was such a dominating performance from Optic last week.
Yeah, it really was. It was kind of Cloud9 looked like that was the first time they'd played that map. It was quite strange to watch, actually, Cloud9 be dominated on a game type in that way, because it's something that we just don't see. I mean, they very rarely get dominated on any map or mode, and maybe they're going to put the time in the week to put those wrongs right, so to speak, and make it a little bit more of a competitive game. But what an opportunity this is for Optic to stamp their way into the grand finals. And of course, even if Cloud9 come back from that losers bracket, of course, the elimination bracket, excuse me, then they're going to have to beat Optic twice, and that's not easy to do.
Not easy to do, and I think the bigger point is they just need to break the duck to Optic Gaming. They need to finally break that curse that is Cloud9, and this is going to be their best chances ever. You're completely right. King of the Hill Streets, a game where they absolutely walloped Cloud9 last week. Cloud9 didn't even pick up a set of rockets. That's how dominating it was from Optic. And if they can play in the same way, if they can have that same success and speed to which they approach King of the Hill Streets, then Cloud9 shouldn't win this game. But my question is, how much have Cloud9 looked at that tape? How much have they practiced a game type that clearly they were very weak in? Because we know Cloud9, we know these players, when they are weak on a game type, they will very quickly adjust to the meta.
Well, a massive game here for Optic Gaming. The opportunity to beat Cloud9 in competitive play doesn't come along too often for them, and there isn't many better opportunities than the one they find in front of themselves right now. StelluR's going to be challenging, and it looks like Lucid's going to get some help from APG. Eco, though, picks up rockets, and that's at least something. That's an improvement from last week's performance on King of the Hill here for Cloud9.
Will he get a kill with them? Yes, he will, and very much is an improvement. We only saw 3 rocket kills last week in this game mode, and they all went in favor of Optic Gaming. So Cloud9 at least able to make some improvements, but we'll see whether it will help them going into the rest of the King of the Hill mode, as Formal is going to be a lethal player here now with that Bulldog, but as I say that, he falls up.
C9 prioritizing that hill early on here. Lucid trying to push in the red room. Look at all of Cloud9, though, just flooding this hill at the moment. StelluR's job is going to be to watch that mid-map flank at the moment. 2 kills fall in their favor, Cloud9. They have control. They should be jumping in this hill and racking up a little bit of time. However, Bound has fallen, and so is his teammate. TriPPPeY's going to be pushing. Optic trying to make this push up the driveway, and those shots from Formal were as crispy and as pristine as you could ask for. Lucid now in a 1v1, and there's going to be a little bit of help coming in from Bound. They're holding down those PD spawns at the moment, and that's been the difference on this street hill.
And at first glance, I was like, why is StelluR challenging that? Just go into red room. But he recognized Eco was behind him. He wanted to do as much damage as possible and secure that kill. He knew that extra bullet would give Eco the definite chance of being able to take Formal down. So I love that from StelluR. That's very much an indication of what we were talking about earlier. They are selfless players, are Cloud9. But they do find themselves all 4 dead now, and Optic with the chance to try and set up for this hill.
And now they've got a break. This is the difficult part, right? Look, 2/3, excuse me, of the bar filled here for Cloud9 to call that first hill their own. But that break is tough. Look at this movement, though, from Lucid. He's got the thrust, he's got the help, and now he's got the Bulldog. Eco is going to be weak on the street. This should be another clean team wipe, you would imagine, coming in from Optic. They should be able to get even more time here, and they should be able to almost tie this game up.
They weren't getting that much time during that whole process, though. Even though they killed the majority of Cloud9, they had done well enough, Cloud9, to throw grenades and keep Optic out of the hill. And eventually, they shut down Lucid. So now they can perhaps take control of that Bulldog, of this driveway area, and then push into the hill as TriPPPeY has picked up rockets as well.
About a high hill for time on this Streets hill. Formal can have the Stalker rifle, and he's probably one of the most devastating players we have in the Halo Championship Series with that gun in his hand. Bound is going to be barked at. Going to be taken down, but look at the push once again coming in from Cloud9. It's organized. It's surgical in the way they're trying to take apart this team. Optic now having to try and break once more, and it looks like two bodies in the hill. TriPPPeY might have a little bit of a rough time around this corner as he gets his pockets pinched. As the rest of Optic Gaming now try and push. They make the break, but the point has gone to Cloud9, so C9 already improving from last week. They take that first Streets hill.
Well, last week, Cloud9 were pretty good at breaking the setups, but where they really struggled was actually setting up themselves. Optic took full advantage of maybe Cloud9's lack of knowledge as a 4 in King of the Hill Streets, but Cloud9 are very good as a unit of making a call and all doing it together, and that is usually the key to success when you want to make a break, is all being on the same page. So I think as long as Cloud9 can better their way of setting up from last week, then this is going to be a far more competitive game.
Well, this hill is one that you can certainly lock down a little bit more securely than what we saw on that street hill. Hills inside of Tram, you can hold down the top Ivy area, you can put pressure onto respawns, and the amount of distance you have to travel down as a player if you're coming off respawn on the other side of the map is much increased from what you see on that street hill.
And it wouldn't surprise me if, as this game mode goes on and develops, that teams give it maybe one shot of trying to break and then purely moving and setting up for the next hill, because it's almost not worth consistently sending players that are going to get killed over and over and giving the team who is set up a chance to get out of that position, which is what's just happened. Cloud9 have given Optic the chance to not only get the hill, but get out and get rockets, and maybe even get into a position where they could set up for next.
I mean, TriPPPeY,
love that,
throws the rockets off to Formal, maybe expecting a death, and Formal will not be able to give Cloud9 one with that rocket, but certainly does the damage. APG picks up not only a kill with the grenade, but also with the battle rifle to clean out those final two players at the back of that A tower. Now Formal on the flank, picks up one, picks up a killing spree, and Optic have the setup now. They should be able to rack up a decent chunk of time. Killing
spree does get shut down, but 16 kills for Formal. He's enjoying himself on Streets at the moment. And I think that comes from the rest of the team being able to just emit the same amount of damage, really. They're matching Formal in his pressure and the shots that he's been able to lay down, and they're all putting enough assists on the board where it is going to be such an enjoyable experience in a 4 when everything you look at has probably already taken some damage.
Formal last alive isn't going to be alive too much longer, though, as he picks up his 8th death, not without 17 kills in the way, but that's a great break. We've seen this from Cloud9 before. They managed to get the break pretty cleanly. Information picked up by Bound, who now scarpers away, and now you're going to expect the Cloud9 collapse to come in. Pznguin has the Bulldog as well, which should allow him to lock down one of those streets. Cloud9 looking pretty strong here, Dan.
Well, this is where they struggled previously. I want to see them in this setup actually hold and get this point. That would be a big telltale sign of the fact they have practiced this game mode and they really are taking this seriously coming into this Pro Series. Eco is in a good spot now to be able to at least watch over bottom mid and make sure that they're not going to get flanked, but he needs the rest of the team to be covering every other angle here. So much trust in your teammates when you can just focus one area of the map.
I like this from Eco as well. Even though they had the lead on this hill, there's more to talk about here, right? The fact that that next hill is going to be moving towards that cafe side. It's not too far for Cloud9 to transition across to, so Eco has to try and influence some spawns, has to stay alive as long as he can. The help's starting to come in now, but look at this play from Eco. He has been such a thorn in the side of Optic. 2 kills exchanged either side. Eco, last player alive, picks up one, and Eco is still alive somehow here.
It's a 1v1, and Eco knows he needs to get his shields here, and he's worried he's going to be tracked. Spawns are going to be a big factor. Has APG got PD spawns? No, actually both teams have spawned in separate places. Cafe is where Cloud9 have got the spawns. Optic were down towards Tram, so I'd say that Cloud9 maybe got the better of the spawn cycle there, but can they actually find the kills?
Lucid picks up one, but Lucid is going to be in an important 1v1 here with Bound. Bound doesn't get the trade as Lucid is there to get that beat down. StelluR cleans it up, and now Cloud9 look like they're on the front foot here, but what a grenade that is coming in from APG. A little bit of unfortunate circumstance there for Eco to be taken down, but it's worthwhile when you find yourself 2-1 up.
Yeah, Cloud9, they did enough. They did get the better side of spawns there, but they also won those 1v1 engagements that were happening all over the map as TriPPPeY just walks into a set of grenades. But we are going to see now Cloud9 the chance to set up once more, and they look like a different team to what we saw on Streets King of the Hill. I don't know if they weren't awake last week when we saw them play it, or whether they just never played it before, but certainly they look more comfortable.
I mean, Optic pretty much have one push here, and if it doesn't go their way, then this could be over. That's a little bit of coordination coming in from Optic to get those grenades into the hill at the same time. Not only does it get them the kill, but it also takes the Bulldog out of commission, so StelluR's going to have to try and escape. That's a great push from Optic. Love what I'm seeing from them, just being patient, making sure they're not rushing their approach to that hill.
Yeah, patience is key in these King of the Hills. It's very different probably when you're watching and you're playing in your ranked games where everyone starts throwing themselves towards the hill like the olden Halo days, but it's certainly more setup heavy with this King of the Hill game mode, and realistically you get 1 or 2 pushes per hill if you're going up against an opposition who knows how to set up properly. So you really do need to time it, you need to be making sure you're coordinated, and actually both teams are playing this pretty well so far, but Cloud9 seem to have the edge right now.
Yeah, Eco just got so much information as well. 4 more, had to win that one, but Pznguin's there with the rockets, and that's going to be Cloud9 converting the next hill too. They're up 3-1. It's 1 more hill to go here. If they can deal with these PD spawners, then I tell you what, Cloud9 might be on the verge of sending us to a Game 4.
Game 4 is very much on the horizon right now. The clock could be a factor as well if this hill starts to get a little bit scrappy and neither team's able to pick up any real time, but I think Cloud9 just want to get this one done right here, right now, not even allow it to go to next hill. But you've got so much responsibility when you're bottom middle. You have to try and face as many angles, keep your head on a swivel, try and do as much damage before you inevitably fall.
Love this positioning from Bound as well. This right corner, you can tuck in, you can stay alive, but also when he's got that Stalker rifle, he's just going to be doing so much damage on all players who are approaching. There's a beatdown. Finally, he falls as TriPPPeY will be in position to pick up 2, but it's still 2v2 on the map, and for Optic, 2v2 isn't good enough right now. They need to get some numbers on their side.
Well, nice shots, but not quite enough. StelluR will go down to a trade of grenades, but now it is a chance for Optic to score. But this is what you can do when you are the leading team, is you can kind of anchor C and just bombard the hill with shots, but you really need to be winning those engagements. Otherwise, you can get very much trapped over towards C as well, and the other team really can pick up some significant time.
Optic's starting to creep back into this hill a little bit more. Big push coming in, though, from Cloud9. They've committed to the front of C here. It looks like Bound and StelluR were able to clear those players off of the balcony, which allowed the rest of the team to move up and make that play. APG, though, recognized the play was being made, retreated back to tires, and now jumps back out to challenge Pznguin. APG playing this one perfectly.
Cloud9 need to get it done in quite a heavy setup here as well. You want as much time on the clock as possible if you are able to get the next hill on the move. Otherwise, Cloud9 are going to be in a position where, you know, at 3-2 with maybe only, what, 50, 40 seconds left with 1 hill left, they could very much just slay out Optic Gaming. But I tell you what, they may not even need it with kills like that. TriPPPeY, the last remaining player of Optic, he goes down, and Cloud9 can now get some more time if they want it.
I mean, Pznguin might fall to that grenade, but look at the pressure now from Cloud9 on the hill. That was such a pivotal moment in the game, Dan. Lucid had the flank on both of those players on P-stairs, took that elongated route, but just lost the BR fight to StelluR. Both those players somehow survived off the back of it, and then they were just down numbers. All of C9 could face forward. And off of that, now Optic are looking like they have to desperate the hill. Bound will clear the player out of tires. Optic find themselves 4 dead, and Cloud9 find themselves 4-1 up and make it a game and make it a series. We're going to Game 4 here. Optic, they certainly did not like the same force on Streets King of the Hill as they did last week.
It's worrying, it has to be said, when Cloud9 are able to improve that drastically from 1 week to the next. I mean, what would they look like next week, for example? If Bound is going to be a permanent fixture and they're improving that much in just the space of a week, I'd be pretty concerned if I was every other team involved in the HCS right now, because that was a statement for me. In what was a very one-sided game last week is pretty one-sided this time, but in the opposition's favor. Cloud9 really showed up. And one thing I noticed in those final moments as well was Eco pinging an area for his teammate to stand on. And straight away, I think it was StelluR who quickly moved and stood in the position that Eco was pinging, because Eco clearly wanted his teammate to stand there, wanted his teammate to help him, so they were watching the same angle. And that's what Eco offers. He's got this great in-game mentality where he knows exactly how he wants to play the game, and he's more than happy to lead the charge with some of these calls.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? I think there's very few players who see Halo in-game, in the action, when all the pressure's on and whatever it is, that see it still from a top-down map perspective, right? And Eco is one of those players. Like you're saying, he's saying, I need someone here. Someone needs to be here so I can make a play off the back of it. And It's one thing to make the call, it's another to have teammates who respond to it. And Eco and StelluR, they've been a duo for so long now. That natural chemistry is synonymous with them at this point. But Bound, again, I just feel like he made some really smart plays in that game. Maybe it doesn't show up in the stats, but he took a lot of damage, but he didn't go particularly. I think when we looked at the KDs, he was still around 0. So he was just being a nuisance to try and finish off for Optic Gaming, just bobbing in and out of that hill, getting damage down with that Stalker rifle on that bottom middle hill. And I think the C9 just showed, like you said, kind of proving your point. When they were weak on a game type, they went away, they've worked on it, and now they look like a different beast.
And what was so interesting last week was, you know, I spoke about it just then on that map, is that they knew how to break the setups, which is usually the harder part of forming as a team. Usually the first thing you talk about when you form a team is starting strategies and setups. A kind of breaking of setups is the more advanced techniques that you start to develop a little bit later. But Cloud9, with the experience they have as a team, that was the first thing that really clicked for them. And clearly they looked back at what went wrong and realized it was actually their setups, and they were far better, far superior today when it came to Streets King of the Hill. And that is going to be a worrying sign for Optic Gaming as we move in now to game 4.
Now, Bazaar captured the flag. This could be a little bit of a war between the two teams. It's going to be very attritional. It's going to be a game type that I don't think we're going to go. Well, we'd never really go to 5 flags on Bazaar. Let's be real. Let's just pretend it's 3 flags. Maybe we will go to 3. Who knows? But Optic have looked pretty good on this, but so have C9. This is a very pivotal moment in the series, and I feel like with Optic having just taken that loss, and in the way that they lost, I think the first flag is vital in this game. If it goes to Optic, all of a sudden the confidence rebounds, the mentality returns. They think it's just hold this out and we win the series, where it's different if it goes to Cloud9, right? All of a sudden the doubts start creeping in. It's like, oh no, not again.
Yeah, and I think that when Optic look at this game type, they will know they lost to it against Cloud9 back in Kansas City, but that was, of course, Cloud9 PR pre-Renegade, so there is going to be a little bit of a change for them here, and maybe a little bit of a game style change as well. What does Bound do? Does he improve Cloud9 here on Bazaar? Does he maybe not offer the same thing as Renegade? Because kills-wise, back then in Kansas City, Renegade was always putting plus 20 kills when it comes to these objective games, so maybe that's something Bound is going to have to offer here as well if they want to get back into this series and take it to a game 5. We said this was Optic's best chance of finally beating Cloud9, was on that Streets King of the Hill, right? And I feel like it has to happen here at Bazaar, because if it goes to that game 5 StelluR with Optic's history, and not just against Cloud9, but in general in like game 5s and maybe not getting over that final hurdle, it would all start to point towards Cloud9 once more.
We've done 3, we're about to do 4, and we're just going to have the full like spectrum of G's. A phrase in a sentence I never thought I'd say, but there it is.
You're stretching, but at the same time, I get that gut feeling as well. I feel like it had to happen on that game 3, and maybe Optic will be feeling the same. And we know as well as any, when you're a player and you're in a position where you are 2-0 up and you're feeling confident, you're on a map that you probably should win, and suddenly the other team who was terrible at it last week finds success, back of your mind, the seed is planted of, oh, what happens if we get reverse swept here? You got to stay focused. You got to stay on the ball.
Well, here we go then, friends. It's time to get into this next game. It's game 4 of the series. An APG going to be trading out some damage early on, but the damage is going to be traded not in the favor of Cloud9. Optic with a great start here at the start of the game. They have rockets. You would expect them off the back of this 4 dead to pick up overshield, and what a start this is. Already grappling in, rockets flying into the base of Cloud9. This is not a good start for C9. It is a very, very strong one for Optic.
It's a rapid start, but do they have tabs on the players potentially overextending here? No, instead Cloud9 are actually just going to challenge from their own rocket side. They have managed to take down 1, so this flag isn't safe just yet. Cloud9 need to position themselves to maybe get a stop, but with Lucid playing the way he is right now, this is going to be difficult.
Yeah, StelluR and Eco have spent more time in the death screen than on the map at the moment. Oh my, Lucid is not missing any bullets at the start of this one. He looks like a man on a mission here. He wants to take down Cloud9. He wants to send a message. He wants to get the job done. And he wants to prove that Optic should be in that conversation of tournament winners when we get back to that LAN environment. The flag's still being moved here. Lucid going to be behind Pznguin. Pznguin trying to do what he can. Hill will fall, and it looks like Optic will be able to convert that first flag. They're up by 1.
Lucid finally goes down, but the damage is done already for sure. The first flag, and a very important flag that you were talking about to give Optic that belief that they are going to win this series, that they can take down Cloud9. 2 players on Cloud9 still without a kill. Bound has 5, but the rest of the boys have not been able to put anything on the board just yet. Optic pummeled them on that starting strategy, and that's what we expect of Optic. They have that structure, they have that teamwork that has been lasting for months now. They should have the better of teams who have just recently formed or playing with a sub or making a change, whatever it may be. But can they keep Cloud9 from getting into a position where they slowly and surely work their way back into the game?
Well, it's not looking good for Cloud9 right now because of the fact that mid-map control completely controlled by Optic. Optic now, because of that, have the overshield after it gets grappled back by Lucid, and Lucid is just being aggro as you can ask for at the moment. More kills being picked up. APG with another. C9 find themselves 3 dead once again, and look at this, still half an overshield here for Lucid to play with.
Lucid sliding around the map like a madman right now. A madman who wants to just fight everything and fight the world. Trying to do what he can for Optic to put themselves into a grand final, and for the first time in Pro Series history, beat this Cloud9 roster has really been their bogey team. And at the moment, it doesn't look like Cloud9 will even have a chance to get back in this game, but 9 minutes is a long time, and sometimes it can take teams a little bit of time to get back into things and start to actually hit some shots. So I wouldn't count Cloud9 out just yet.
Well, the good news is for Eco, he just got his first kill of the game. StelluR and Eco both with 1 kill apiece. That's 2 kills in total, 14, maybe even more now, as I've just seen another death added to the tally between them for the deaths. And Formal now just charging at Eco, just saying, I want to be aggressive. I want to make this hurt for Cloud9. But even though they've had all this dominance, even though they've been on the front foot for the majority of this game down, it's still just the 1 flag between the 2 teams.
That's what Bazaar is always difficult to presume you're going to have a victory, and why you can never let your foot off the gas. Actually, in Europe, in the European Pro Series yesterday, a team was up 3-0, and Wes said he's never seen a team throw away a 3-0 lead. It turned into 3-3 after 5 minutes because that team took their foot off the pedal. They weren't necessarily playing at a speed which they should have been, and the opposition took full advantage of that. Optic need to make sure that they don't allow Cloud9 to do the same thing, where they think that they have an edge, so they will take a mile.
Name and shame. What team was it?
They threw away the 3-0.
Yes.
It was
name and shame them.
I know I don't feel like I should. You know, I don't want to put a team on blast right now.
Anyway, don't worry. You can't remember. I get it. Overshield popping though. Pznguin going to be challenging. Lucid going to be winning. That's his 15th kill of the game now. He's 15-4 Lucid at the moment, but StelluR does have the Ovi. The first time we've seen that in the hands of Cloud9 as he takes down Lucid and adds another death to the tally.
I'm going to send with the team who got the flags back, but you're right. I can't remember who it was they were against. It was either Navi or Quadrant. It was one of the two. But anyway, the other team went on and beat Ascent, so it didn't really matter too much in the end. Wes was still right. 1-0 still, though, to Optic Gaming, but still plenty of time for Cloud9. And they've done better at getting kills. They've done better at breaking into the Optic base, but still not enough, really, to get a flag pull and a flag run on the go.
Feels like the first time we're starting to see Cloud9 win a few of these individual battles, a few of the pivotal battles going in their favor as well. Lucid trying to chase down Bound. Bound going to drop a grenade, and Bound had to reload. Otherwise, that might have been a little bit ugly there for Lucid, but you can see mid-map control just consistently still in the favor of Optic. And look at the teamwork now coming in. TriPPPeY and Lucid, we talk about duos. These two have been doing it for years together, and now they're looking to push forward as well as Formal picks up another.
Lucid has been playing this game a lot in the last week, and you can see it. His shot is on. He's not missing. He knows exactly where he wants to be on the map and where he needs to be to help his team as well. 6 minutes left, still plenty of time, but Optic look the more likely to get a second flag pull. But Cloud9 are doing enough defensively just to keep them at arm's length, just to keep them away. Perhaps they need an overshield or a set of rockets to really give them a chance to get back into this game.
Yeah, it looks like APG wasn't quite sure where that spawn had come in there for a few seconds. They didn't want to try and force that flag. And when you have a 1 flag advantage, you don't need to force the pace. Bound's going to be challenging. Bound's going to win that one. Great little angle taken by Bound as well to take down APG. Especially when he had those 2 spike grenades. I mean, we've all been there in matchmaking enough times now to know that if someone throws a spike grenade on the same map as you, sometimes it just still clips you somehow and take you down.
Lucid puts more damage in and is just going to give up the overshield to a teammate here, I think. Oh, no, as I say that, he doubles back on himself. And somehow still manages to get that final shot. But the support network we're seeing from Optic is something that's beautiful to see.
Certainly is. Very efficient Halo being played by Optic at the moment, but I'd like to see them keep the aggression up. The last thing you want to see, like you mentioned, is giving Cloud9 an inch, because they'll take a mile. And they will get that flag moving. They'll only need to pull 1 to convert if they get a 3 or 4 dead. So Cloud9 still looking dangerous here. Bound going to be trying to challenge Formal. and challenge he will win as well. TriPPPeY and Lucid still looking extremely good in this game. 20 kills for one, 15 for the other. On the other side, StelluR and Eco kind of in passengers in this game at the moment. 6 and 5 kills respectively.
Yeah, I mean, Bound has been still slaying as much as he has been, not just last week, but throughout this tournament. But it seems like the rest of the team struggling a little bit to keep up, and that's mainly just down to how well Optic have been playing. They've been absolutely bombarding Cloud9 spawn each time, watching the right angles. They've been getting the overshields, they've been getting the rockets, they've been getting things like the Bulldog, for example. And every time we go back onto Lucid's screen, he's once more finding kills. He's once more having a lot of damage in his hands.
4 minutes and 40 seconds left in this game. A little bit of a chunk from the Bulldog, but not enough to really take a player down, as Lucid will fall 21 and 10. Still not a bad stat line for Lucid in this game. TriPPPeY there to clean up some damage. You can see again, it's just TriPPPeY just standing mid-map, just waiting for Cloud9 to push. Eco trying to be the aggressor once more, but TriPPPeY just being elusive until Eco hunts him down. 2 full for Optic. This might be the chance here for Cloud9 just to get that map control they're looking for. APG is an important kill to pick up here for Cloud9 as that overshield is popping and Pznguin comes back to double up and do that damage required.
You have to imagine if StelluR and Eco start fragging out, right, and they get into a position where the kills start flowing, then suddenly, you know, a flag cap is on the card. Suddenly it is going to be a potential, because then everyone on Cloud9 is firing to a point where they can actually contest the damage output that we're seeing from Optic right now. Overshield is the perfect chance to do so, but here comes the Needler, and Eco wanted nothing to do with it. You do not want to run into a Needler that will very quickly take that overshield down.
What a push this is, though, from Cloud9. Look at this. Eco managing to avoid the damage. He's managing to avoid Formal. Formal gets taken down. That's 3 dead momentarily. Last player is going to be Lucid. Lucid falls as well. All players on the map from Optic are now respawned, as Cloud9 only needed one opportunity here, Dan, and they are making Optic pay. It's back through the double doors, but APG's in the base with TriPPPeY. They haven't dealt with the OE.
APG gets 2, and APG can be in a fantastic position to maybe get a re here as well. Has to win the engagements though, and somehow, someway, Optic still hang on in a position where Cloud9 looked for sure they were going to tie this one up. Fantastic overextension from APG.
Great overextension from Optic. APG and TriPPPeY doing a great job, but I mean, what went wrong there for Cloud9? Because that is a good cap opportunity as you could ask for. Staggered spawns, 2 players, you know where they're going to be back at the base. No one rotated back. It was just one of those things that usually Cloud9 do not make mistakes on, but that was a mistake, Dan.
Maybe a lack of communication. They were looking in different directions, but not looking in the one direction they really needed to. Great band One Direction were, by the way. Harry Styles is doing fantastic since he left, but now Lucid, similarly to Harry Styles, who would do an incredible job on the stage, now has rockets.
I thought you were going to say Harry Styles known for his rocket launcher. And I was like, it's a strange bit of One Direction merch that I didn't think would be available, but at the moment, it's going to be Lucid, who maybe is going to have his own rocket launcher pretty soon because he's doing some work with this one.
2 minutes on the clock. And Optic, unlike Quadrant, who were the team who threw away the 3-0 lead, I remember now, thanks to my coordinator, Shurzy1, who came in clutch with the WhatsApp message. They only have 1 flag to throw away, which is very easily doable by even the best teams in the world. So Cloud9, even though it's only 1 minute 48 on the clock, it's still time. There's still that potential of it happening.
Pressure just continual here from Optic. They have the overshield. Last player alive is StelluR. This could be the nail in the coffin here for Cloud9. APG moving this flag towards Lucid. They're running it down on the low side as well, so they're going to block those spawns, which might give Cloud9 an opportunity to overextend. He also has the overshield. This is looking like the second flag on the board. Bound picks up 1. TriPPPeY trades it out, and this is just the most simple run home for APG. It's almost as if he was the only player on the map here, as Optic do put that second flag in. And Cloud9 have been struggling to get 1 on the board, let alone into the Optic base. And with 2 on the board here for Optic and a minute left, this is looking like his game.
It's looking like for the first time in Pro Series, the first time in HCS competition, Optic will finally be able to take down the Cloud9 organization, as all 4 are dead. The curse surely is to be lifted now, and maybe it's just going to be a victory lap for the Green Wall.
Certainly should be. Just pressure on the base again. APG with some pure shots to take down the player in the back of the base. Lucid just slaying out now. Cloud9, I think they know it's done. Optic running the BM flag. That's what you love to see. 30 seconds left on the clock. They know there's no chance for Cloud9 to overextend and get 2 on the board. So it's just going to be a little bit of stat pad in here. APG wants the flag. TriPPPeY says no. My stat's more important. Puts that one home. And with 20 seconds left, C9 are done. They're out of the game. Optic will be moving through to the grand finals.
As Harry Styles once famously said, as it was, it's not the same as it was. When Renegade leaves and suddenly bounds in the roster, Optic finally managed to break the curse. They finally take down Cloud9, and they're going to be delighted to get that duck out of the way. It has been looming over them for so much time on set. There's been so many questions of when is it going to happen? When are Optic going to finally reach that potential where they do take down this roster that has been a bogey for so long? And it's finally happened. They get themselves into a grand finals, and they at least give themselves the best chance possible to win this Pro Series.
Well, it's looking pretty good for Optic now, and they, like you mentioned, an opportunity to just win 1 series against Cloud9, and the job is done for them. For Cloud9, they'll drop down to the elimination bracket where games are still going on. They're waiting to see who is going to be their opponent, but from the looks of things, Dan, I think it might be G1 who actually managed to sneak out the win. We'll get confirmation of that against G2, of course, as soon as we can to find out who Cloud9 are going to be going up against, but it is G1. G1 take down G2.
I mean, they're called G1 for a reason, right? G1 beats G2 in every time. No, I mean, those two, they played each other a lot. I think Bravo mentioned that they do seem to find each other in a bracket. But anyway, looking at the stats, fair enough to bound, 23 kills. But on the other side, Lucid, I mean, watching his POV was a masterclass there. I'd love to go back and see just what he did in every element, because I really do think that he was all guns blazing. But of course, it was the Optic support network that came in and allowed him to do so.
I mean, just look at the KDAs on Optic in that game. 7.3. Oh, he's only got 1 out. 7.3 was the lowest, though. That's all you need to know. But look at the damage dealt from Lucid. Nearly 8k damage for him. If you compare that to StelluR with just over 4.4, I mean, night and day performance from the 2 squads, and Optic deservedly go through into our grand finals.
I think that's the first time we've seen some of these players on Cloud9 just not able to get into a game. StelluR in particular there, and the damage, I mean, for a while, him and Eco were 0 kills, 5 kills, even 10 minutes into the game. They just unfortunately couldn't find their footing, but it was more down to Optic and how they just swarmed them every single time, and they were keeping Cloud9 separate as well. Cloud9 would try and kind of gather and get together so they could hold hands and try and take fights, but Optic almost caught them before they even were allowed to get close to one another. A very successfully well-played game from Optic, and they looked like the team that we expected them to look like last week.